Hello there, and welcome, one and all, to the Games Monster Podcast. I am your host, David Pustansky, and my goodness, what an exciting episode this is going to be. Today we're going to be talking about the Xbox Series X, with the new information on it, including price and release date, and along with the reveal, the worst kept secret in all video games all year, the Xbox Series S. We'll also be then talking about how this then is going to affect what move Sony makes with the PS5, and the rumours that we've got at the moment of a Switch Pro, those rumours that have been around almost as long as the Switch has been out. But let's start with the Xbox, because this is going to be the big part of what we're talking about today. They have revealed the Xbox Series S, which is teeny tiny. Apparently it's the smallest Xbox that they've ever put out. And yeah, let's just have a look at some of these stats. So the dimensions, it's so much smaller. It looks like you could legitimately have 2.5 or 3 Xbox Series S's next to each other to fit into the same size as a Series X. It's a little bit shorter, but so much thinner. It doesn't have a disc drive. It's all digital. But let's have a look. The physical look of a machine, the physical size and stuff, yeah, it's got some important. People are going to fit it into their homes. If it's a portable, can they fit it in their bag or their pocket? And we get all that. But to me, if you've made the decision that you're going to get a games console, you will find the space for that games console. So the physical look of it is less important to me than what is it actually capable of doing, because I've got a controller in my hand that I'm not really going to be looking at. I've got a box next to my TV or under my TV that I'm not really going to be interacting with and looking at. I'm going to be looking at the games on the screen. Now, can it put out games that look as good? Can it put out games that play as well? And so let's have a look. The CPU. Now, I don't really understand all of this, so I'll be honest, but let's have a look at the differences and see what we can figure out. So the Xbox Series X says to have a custom AMD Zen 2 8-core 3.8 GHz, and then it puts in brackets 3.6 GHz with SMT, don't know what that is. And when we look to the Series S, it likewise is a custom AMD Zen 2 8-core. But here's the difference. Instead of it being 3.8 GHz, it says it's 3.6. And then where it says 3.6 GHz with SMT, the Series S then says 3.4. So it's just got 0.2 GHz less, whatever that means. I'm sure that's significant to a degree, but also it's probably not super significant. When we look at the GPU, this is a bit more of a difference. On the Series X, we've got a custom RDNA2 with 12.15 teraflops, and then 52 CU at 1.85 gigahertz. Whereas if we look to the Series S, it's also a custom RDNA2, but instead of it being 12.15 teraflops, it's just 4 teraflops. Now, if memory serves, because I don't understand this anyway, if memory serves, the Xbox One X is something like 10 teraflops or 8 teraflops or something like this. So some people have been losing their minds that this is simply 4 teraflops. But the thing I do understand, and I can liken it to, is when you get different processors on like a PC, on a laptop. I know that years and years ago, it's like, oh, I'm going to get this one, it's an i5. And then it's like, I'm going to get this one now, it's super expensive, £1,000, because it's an i7. And then someone else pointed, yeah, but that's an old one, that's an old i7. A new, like if we're talking modern times, a 2020 i5 processor is probably better than a 2012 i7 processor, if you see what I mean, because they'll say it's a 7th generation i5 processor is better than a 2nd generation i7, and if you get a 3rd generation i9 versus a 10th generation i7, then it's all much of a muchness. And I don't really understand what this means. I wish things were as simple as they were back in the day, where you could say, Well, the NES is 8-bit, and the Super NES is 16-bit. But then Atari can be like, but the Jaguar is 64 bits of power. And you could understand that, because it was simply that you knew that 16 is twice of 8, and 64 is 4 times 16. So it's like, well, that one's more powerful. And of course, it's never been as simple as that. Even back in the days, talking of the Jaguar example, 64-bit Jaguar. If you put the Jaguar next to the Nintendo 64, the Jaguar couldn't even dream of doing what the N64 achieved. So it was never just that simple. But now you get i5, i7, i9, second generation this, fourth generation that, teraflops. I swear, before the Xbox One X was a thing, nobody was ever talking about teraflops. And it kind of sounds terrible, doesn't it? Because you hear, terabyte, like gigabyte. How many gig is it? How many gigabytes is on this hard drive? Well, this one's got a terabyte. And then all of a sudden, so it's going to be big if it's got like a terabyte of memory, or a terabyte of a hard drive. But what's a teraflop? A flop doesn't sound good. That sounds like when something's not successful. But anyway, I digress. Looking next, the Series X has got 16 gigabytes GDDR6 RAM, so 320-bit, just talking about the bits. I wonder if that's actually bits in the same sense that we were talking about 16-bit Super Nintendo and Mega Drives. 320-bit. I just think that should be what we're talking about here. I know I'm going back to what I was just saying, but we should just be like, well, this is a 320-bit console. Because actually, when you think about it, the Dreamcast was 128-bit, double the N64. And that was the last time people spoke about it. Now, I assume that the Xbox, the GameCube, and the PS2 were also 128-bit. But why weren't we saying the Xbox 360, PS3 are 512-bit? Or, sorry, 256-bit, and the new one's 512-bit. And then this one should be like over 1,000 if it doubles up every time. So, actually, 320 bits on this doesn't sound that good. Anyway, the Series X, 16 gigabyte, 320-bit, and then the Series S, 10 gigabyte GDDR6, and it doesn't mention how many bits there. Memory bandwidth, this Series X is 10 gigabyte at 560 gigabytes a second. Wow. 6 gigabytes at 336 gigabytes a second, versus the Series S, from 10 it goes down to 8 gigabytes, and that's going from 560 gigabytes a second to 224 gigabytes a second. 6 gigabytes at 336 a second, down to 2 at 56 gigabytes a second. So they seem like significant drops, but what does that actually mean? If we look at the internal storage, again, this is one where in the past I'd say, well, it doesn't matter, because you can always get like a memory card or an external hard drive or SD card or something like this. So the extra storage, if you want to swap around different external hard drives, then, or you can delete stuff or whatever. But nowadays it is important with these consoles, which I'll get into in a second. But let's have a look. Series X is 1 terabyte. PCIe Gen 4 NVMe, I forget what that stands for, I did know, SSD hard drive, and then this is on the Series S just a 512, but otherwise it looks like the specs Gen 4, yeah. So it's just, you get double the space with the Series X rather than the Series S. So there it is, literally just down to the space. But I do know when it comes to things like the PS5, which we'll get to soon, like the SSD drive in it, I think is so fast that I heard yesterday that there is a game that loads within 2 seconds. And having these solid state drives, which is what SSD is, the hard drives, the internal storage, having solid state drives means that you can access things so quickly. If you've not got a solid state drive in your PC, in your Mac, in your laptop, whatever, you should get one, just because it will make the whole thing faster. And being able to load these games, which will be installed obviously onto the hard drives, will just make them incredibly quick. And it says I/O throughput 2.4 gigabytes, raw 4.8 gigabytes compressed, and then it's 2.4 on the Series S, and it's okay. So that one's exactly the same, Series X to Series S. External hard drive, 1 terabyte expansion card, USB HDD support. That's the same on both. Physical media. So the Series X, you get 4K UHD Blu-rays, ultra high definition Blu-rays, and none for the Series S. So it is all digital. And does that matter nowadays? If everything's all digital, does that matter when we're talking about Xbox, about Microsoft? Microsoft's been around for decades. We've had 2 decades of Xbox almost. Is it going to go away? Are they going to make it so you can't re-download your old games? We've seen it happen on the Wii, where you can't now access the Wii eShop anymore. And I think you can still get everything PS3. I think you can get everything PlayStation Vita. And I'm not sure about the PSP, but we have seen these things go away a little bit. But also, and because we're all suckers, we buy the same games. One of the games I'm looking forward to most is Super Mario 3D All-Stars. I was talking about it on the last episode of this podcast. And I have all of the games on the collection. Yeah, I'm gonna get the collection just so that I can play it on my Switch. Just like I got Super Mario Bros. 1 that I play on my Switch. Granted, it's part of the Nintendo Switch online service, but I would have bought it anyway because I bought it for the Wii. I upgraded the purchase from the Wii to the Wii U. I have Super Mario All-Stars. I've got Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for my Game Boy Color. So you buy the same games over and over again if you're a big fan of them. If you're not a big fan of them, then don't worry if it's left behind on an old console. But anyway, output resolution. So 4K at 60 frames per second on the Series X. So 1440p at 60 frames per second. So it's not 4K, but it's very, very good. It's better than standard HD. So the Series S looks pretty good. Now, the question is, why would you get the Series S over the Series X? If you are someone that's interested in, like, I've got such little space under my TV, then the Series S will fit nicely. Obviously, they're going to both be able to play the same games. They're not going to make it so that, well, this one can't play this. Some people might say, well, this one plays really badly on the Series S, but this one plays amazing on the Series X. And there's going to be games where that probably doesn't matter at all. If you get something where it's like, if you get a new Mega Man game and it's a 2D platformer, it isn't going to make a difference on either. But if you get the new Halo game, it's probably going to make a bit of a difference. And there's rumours, in fact, that Halo Infinite was delayed so that they could try and make it look better on the Series S, because simply it just wasn't running well enough. But here's the big thing. Here is the big news out of the reveal of the Series S and the Series X. It's the way you get them, the prices. They have launched the info on the prices way ahead of Sony. Sony may have to come out very quickly, or they may have to scramble to come up with a plan, because the Series X is going to be in US dollars, $499 US dollars. The Series S is $299. So imagine you can get the newest Xbox for $300 and play the new Halo game when it comes out, play any of the games when they come out. Now, obviously, there's the controversy, which shouldn't have been a controversy, but it's obvious how it was a controversy, that you'll be able to get any of the Microsoft release games also for the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, the Xbox One X. You'll be able to play them on there. Now, obviously, they're not going to run as well. It's like having like a gaming laptop versus just your standard school laptop, if you want to compare it in that way. Obviously, it's going to work better on the better machine, the faster machine. It will probably play better. Whether or not all the online features and stuff will be able to work cross-play, who knows? They may have to make a decision where, well, you can play this, but you can only play against other people on Xbox One. Or if you've got like the Xbox One X, then perhaps you can play against people on the Xbox Series S, but we're not going to put you against the Xbox Series X people. Who knows if Xbox Series X players will be able to play everything with like the original Xbox One owners. And obviously that's only going to last so long. But you don't get discs. You have to get digital downloads if you've got the Series S. And for some people that will be an issue. But I think they've made a very smart move here in that they're saying, well, you have a choice. You can go all digital if you want, or you can make it so you can get your discs. Because obviously that was a big sticking point for the Xbox One versus the PS4. The idea that, digital rights management, and, I want to be able to buy discs and be able to use them in 30 years' time. Where now they're saying, look, you've got an option. You can save $200 by going all digital. And you're only going to get the disc, put it in, install the game, then probably have to put in the disc just to make sure they know you're playing the game. But it's all going to be running off the hard drive exactly the same, whichever version you get. So, what else? It was 4K graphics. I think this is a little bit similar, because a lot of people have 4K televisions now, because 4K televisions have been a thing for a few years. But this, to me, we're at a similar point to when the Wii came out, where the Wii came out and it didn't support HD TVs. You could play it on there, but it wouldn't look as good. It wouldn't look better for it. Whereas the PS3 and the Xbox 360 came out and they could be played with HD TVs and they'd look amazing. Or you could play them on the old TVs and the graphics would still look good, but they'd not look good, if you know what I mean. And Nintendo were like, right, we're not going to put it onto HD because not everyone's got it yet. This is Microsoft saying, look, enough people have 4K TVs so that if you want the best, we're giving you an option for the best. But if you've just got a regular HD TV, then we give an option where you're not paying for something that you're not going to perhaps use for 3, 4, 5 years, if at all. I know people who still buy DVDs instead of Blu-rays, and this thing says it supports 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray discs. And so if you're still playing DVDs, it's like, well, your TV isn't going to make this look any better compared to someone who needs the 4K Ultra HD discs, etc. So give an option for the people that don't need all of that, and they are. And here is the real kicker. This is the big thing, which is everyone was saying, oh my god, Halo's not coming out at launch. Microsoft is doomed. They should just delay this whole thing. And Microsoft were like, no, we're not going to do that. Because they had clearly got an ace up their sleeve, which Sony are going to have to now come back with an amazing reply. They're going to have to come up with something amazing to combat this. You can get the consoles like how you'd have a mobile phone on a contract. For the Series S, you can pay, I think, $25, £25 a month, something like that. And you'll pay it for 2 years. So it's like buying a cheap game a month, frankly. A cheap game each month. So you're not buying a AAA release at $25 a month. You're basically just signing up to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is what you will actually be doing. I'll get to that in a second. And you'll get all of those games that come on that, 100 plus games, all of the day one Microsoft releases. So you'll get Halo Infinite included in that. Plus, they've said that you'll get EA Play. So you'll get all of the new EA games, I believe. I don't do EA Play myself. Or EA, what's it called? Unlimited Full Access or something like this. I don't do it. But you'll get all the EA games as well included. All the Xbox games, all of the games they've got on that 100-game Xbox Games Pass, plus EA games, plus the console at $25 a month, and you get the Series S. Now, I think it's only then $35 a month. I might have to just check this statistic here. $35 a month, and then you get the Series X. So you're just making the commitment, frankly, to buy the Game Pass. And so let's have a look here. So, hang on. Okay, well, this is incredible. This is a UK site, so if you're in the States, just check your local pricing. So, Xbox All Access. Now, I'm on Eurogamer just to read this, just to give them credit. You can get an Xbox Series X, plus 24 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for £28.99 a month, spread over 24 months. Or an Xbox Series S plus 24 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate at £20.99 a month, spread over 24 months. That is insane. So, obviously, for the $8.99 extra, I would get the Series X. I would get that. Like, I don't know if pre-orders are open now, but I'm so tempted. The Xbox Series X, 24 months of Xbox Games Pass Ultimate for $28.99 a month. I pay, as it is, for Netflix, for the WWE Network, for Amazon Prime, and like they add up. If they're like £8 or £9 each, round them up to a tenner each. There's three things I said. So a tenner each, or whatever, £9 each. $28.99, I could get the equivalent of all of those different services, but in games. My God, like, what is Sony going to do to beat that? Because if you're going to have to spend £500 to get a PS5, and then you have to spend £50 to get Spider-Man, or they're saying that the cost of games are going to go up as well. If you then have to spend £60, £70 to get Spider-Man Miles Morales, or to get The Last of Us 2 HD remastered when they inevitably put that out, or whatever, versus, well, yeah, there's going to be some third-party games I want, but all of the Microsoft games, Forza Horizon, anything from Rare, the new Killer Instinct, new Perfect Dark, Sea of Thieves, anything else, Halo, Gears of War, $28.99 a month, got the machine, got all of these games, more games. I have not played 100 games in the last year. I've played a lot of games, but I have not played 100 games in the last year, and a lot of people haven't because, of work, life, family, commitments, something like this. You don't have time in a year to play all of the games that you will get for $28.99 a month. That's absolutely insane. So this is now games as a service. People didn't like it when the virtual console went away, and it's like, well, you now get all these NES games, all these Super Nintendo games, included with your Switch Online subscription. But there's a load of games there. I haven't played them all. Haven't had time to. I bought games on the Wii or the Wii U virtual console, which I haven't had time to play yet, and I bought them maybe 10 years ago. So just thinking, well, I spent that money anyway and then didn't play a game. I could spend this money and there'll be more games here than I've got time to play, but I can also then choose to play any of the ones I do want to play. That is incredible value. What are Sony going to do? The rumours are that the PS5 is super powerful, and because of the SSD drive, it might actually outclass the Series X in certain ways. Although they've said that the Series X is going to be the most powerful games console of all time, but we'll see how that comes to with like multi-platform games in comparison to each other when we get the opportunity in just a couple of months' time. It's going to be really interesting because Sony, they could put out a similar subscription offer. They could say you get PS Plus with it, PlayStation Now with it. You could backwards compatibility. That's another thing I didn't really speak about. The Series X, apparently you're going to be able to play original Xbox games, Xbox 360 games, and Xbox One games on this. And that to me is an incredible. I think all machines should always do that. I loved that Sony did that. You could get the PS2 and it would play PS1 games. You get the PS3, it could play PS1 and play PS2 games. Now, they'd have probably kept that going a lot nicer than they did, other than the fact that the PS3 was a bit of a mess and they had to do stuff to reduce the cost, and so they took away the backwards compatibility. PS4, they were like, well, we'll make some games available for download and we'll do PS Now and you'll be able to play some PS3 games that way. But they've never really gone back to backwards compatibility. The PlayStation Vita, you could download PlayStation portable games for it, and that was great. Obviously, the physical media didn't work. But backwards compatibility, I mean, before that, it wasn't Sony that invented it. Sega made it so that you could play Master System games on the Mega Drive or on the Game Gear by getting an adapter and that was great. Nintendo obviously let you get the adapters to be able to play Game Boy games on the TV, and you could play Game Boy games on the Game Boy Color, you could play Game Boy Original or Color games on the Game Boy Advance, and then they started saying, okay, we're not going to give you too much backwards compatibility. Everyone seems to say that there's a limit, there's a cut-off point where we don't want people to go back in time, even though these games are now harder to find. They don't want people playing old games, not buying the new games, and I get that. But the Nintendo DS, they said, well, we'll let you play Game Boy Advance games, but not Game Boy Original or Color games. On the 3DS, they said, we'll let you play original DS games, but we're saying goodbye to anything Game Boy related. And now the Switch obviously has no backwards compatibility at all, and they'll make you buy the old games. And well, obviously the Wii U let you play the Wii games, but they made it a pain in the butt. And so Wii and Wii U games, you just have to download them on the Switch if you want to get any of those re-released. So, let's very quickly talk about where does this leave Nintendo? How can, people were shocked a while ago when we were having Doom, 2018 or 2016, whatever it was, 2016, released on the Switch. And then it was there's going to also be Mortal Kombat 11 on the Switch, and it's going to be like the PS4 game, and it's going to be amazing, and people didn't think this would be possible. And then they proved it was possible. Still haven't quite got Doom Eternal, but I digress. It showed that they could, if they want, downscale the games to the Switch, and that they'd still be awesome. But how can they now take games that aren't PS4 games, that aren't Xbox One games, and they're going to be Xbox Series X, PS5 games, and say we're going to downgrade them so they'll work on the Switch? Where does this leave the Switch? The Switch is the contemporary, believe it or not. Even though it was a mid-generation thing, it is, in terms of generation, the equivalent to the Xbox Series X and to the PS5, because the contemporary of the Wii U was the PS4. They came out 1 year apart. The Wii U came out, then the PS4 and Xbox One came out. But then, it was just 3 years later, Nintendo were like, screw this Wii U thing, we're doing the Switch. And now we're at the point where it's right, PS5, Xbox Series X are out, and we're in the position where the Switch has only been out for 3 years. They need to make that last another 2 years, probably. If in 1 year's time they were like, okay, here's the Switch Pro, or here's the Switch 2, they could probably do that. And they'd be like, oh, well, that was quite... They cut the Switch off quite quick, because it was super successful. 4 years for something as successful as the Switch would seem a little bit short by modern standards. But what if they do the same thing as the Series X and the Series S? What if there is the Switch Pro, like we had the PS4 Pro, and like we had the Xbox One X? What if they just say, here is an upgraded Switch, everything that comes out for the upgraded Switch will work on the original Switch, and vice versa. But so some games, they're gonna run like garbage if you put them on the original Switch. That's why you should upgrade and get a Switch Pro. And that way, things that come out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X will also be able to come out onto the Switch Pro. What if that's the only way they can do it? We know on the 3DS, when they released the new Nintendo 3DS, there was maybe 1 or 2 exclusives. What were the exclusives? Definitely Xenoblade Chronicles was only for the new Nintendo 3DS. And then obviously the Super Nintendo retro emulator games were only, the Virtual Console was only for the new Nintendo 3DS, and you couldn't get them on the original 3DS. But there may have been one other. I'd like to say there was one other game that was exclusive to the new Nintendo 3DS. But who knows? So anyway, I am super, super excited about the Xbox One Series X. I've just, in the course of this podcast, I've convinced myself that that's the route I'm going to go. So, I will cancel Netflix to get this thing. I need that in my life. I need to get the PS5, obviously. They showed off the trailer for Resident Evil 8 Village, or Village Resident Evil, as they dubbed it. I will have that one way or another on launch day. And so I don't believe that's going to be a PS5 exclusive, even though that's obviously where they debuted, showing Resident Evil 8. But The Last of Us, obviously, The Last of Us 2, The Last of Us 3, if there should be such a thing. What else is PlayStation exclusive? Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo. There's not tons of PlayStation exclusives I'm super excited about. Obviously, Spider-Man Miles Morales is going to be amazing. Amazing Spider-Man, in fact. But then Halo. I am quite excited for Halo. I'm excited for anything Rare puts out, even though Rare have been a disappointment ever since they left Nintendo. Let's just be honest about it. But there's a Gears of War, not the biggest fan, but I'm a fan. There's great stuff on all of them. So, it's going to be a very exciting new generation of consoles that are coming out this year. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to be reviewing stuff. So I'm wrapping things up here now. But if you're enjoying the Games Monster podcast, or any of the things we do with Extreme Improv, do give us a subscribe. Do give us feedback. I want to hear from people. If people send me tweets or messages or things like this, I will respond to them on our next episodes. If you're not familiar with all of what we've done, and this is the first time you're listening, I do encourage you to check out everything from Extreme Improv. So, Extreme Improv, if you don't know, we do improv comedy shows. Often it will feature characters and scenes and content that relate to video games, but also to movies and to pro wrestling and to any pop culture and to anything from the real world or fantasy worlds out there. So do check that out. We have lots of podcasts, the Mega Movie Podcast, the Super Kick Mania Pro Wrestling Podcast. So if you're interested in movies or wrestling, do check out those podcasts. Plus we've got a few improv shows, improv podcasts, the Skill Show, which teaches you how to do improv. We've got the Radio Rumble Show, which is just a half hour of improvised golden comedy. Check all of these out. Just have a look. We do live streams. We do live streams of games, plus we do live streams of comedy shows every week, multiple times a week. And you can find all of them at our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Extreme Improv, facebook.com/Extreme Improv, twitch.tv/Extreme Improv. Just search Extreme Improv on any of these platforms, social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, the lot. Anyway, my name is David Pustansky. We're going to have another episode coming up for you very, very soon, and I hope you have a good day, and tune in next time to the Games Monster podcast. Bye for now, guys.